Hi everyone, Lucy here with more Learning English with E2. Now today we're looking at some more words and rules, and today's grammar is specifically you are not allowed. So we're talking about permission with allow and forbid. So this is our level 6, lesson 13, using the verbs allow and forbid. Now in this lesson we're going to look at these verbs in both the active and passive form, and we're using it to talk about permission and prohibition, okay? So remember that permission means that something is okay for you to do. You are allowed to do it, whereas prohibition is something that is forbidden. You're not allowed to do it. You shouldn't do it, okay? So let's take a look at some example sentences to figure out exactly how to use these verbs, okay? So our first example here is the teacher allowed the students to go home early. Okay, so notice that we have our subject teacher with our verb allowed, and then we have the students, our object. So this is actually an example of an active sentence, okay? Now let's take a look at our second example sentence, and this is actually a passive version, okay? So our example 2 says, students are forbidden to use mobile phones during the exam. So here, rather than an active sentence like the previous example, we're using the passive. So we have students, which are actually the object. Then we have are forbidden to use. So remember, with the passive, you're using that verb be, in this case are, and then our PP, our past participle. And remember that the verb forbid is an irregular verb. So the PP of forbid is forbidden. And the PP of allow, well, it's regular, so just allowed. Okay, let's take a look at our next example, and this one's a little bit harder. So it says, it is unclear if experiments on human subjects will be allowed to continue in the distant future. Now, what do you think? This sentence, is it active or passive? It's passive, right? You can see that verb be, will be in the future, okay? Now this kind of construction, especially the passive, is really nice to use in more formal contexts, in things like you're writing, possibly you're speaking if you're in a very formal situation. Now, so what exactly is the rule here? Well, let's take a look at the rule. How do we use these verbs? So for the active, first we have our subject, then we have our verb, either allow or forbid, then our object, then we're going to use the to verb. Okay, now with our passive, we start with the object, then we have our verb be, and then we have allowed or forbidden, remember that PP, and again our to verb, okay? Notice at the bottom it says follow with a verb. So like we said, something like students are not allowed to use their mobile phones, right? You want to use that to verb. Okay, so it's a little bit tricky, a little bit difficult. So let's try some practice, okay? So let's take a look at these practice sentences. Now our first one, hopefully not too difficult. The original sentence is, her mother said she could go to the party, right? So remember, if something is okay, you're using that verb allowed. So her mother allowed her to go to the party. Good. All right. Let's take a look at our second example, slightly more difficult. His boss told him it was against the rules to come late. Okay, so here we're using is against the rules. It's not allowed. So we're using forbidden. And notice that we have the passive. He was forbidden. Now, how do we make this sentence? All right, he was forbidden to come late by his boss. Okay, so we have our be verb, we have our PP forbidden, we have our to with our verb come. And notice if we want to include the subject in a passive sentence, then you use that word by. So in this case, he was forbidden to come late by his boss. But remember, that information is optional. We don't necessarily need it. It's up to you if you think it's important. Okay, now let's take a look at our third example sentence, our third practice sentence. So we have students must not bring any notes with them to the class. So here we have students are, so there we have our be verb, so you know, ding, 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 it's going to be passive. So what do you think? Students are not allowed to bring any notes with them to the test. Okay, now remember, if you want to use forbidden there, you could do the exact same sentence, but students are forbidden to bring, right? They must not, it's not allowed, okay? Great. Now, hopefully that this was helpful for you and something that you can use in your own writing or your own speaking. These kind of constructions are great as an alternative to say that something is okay or you must or must not do something, okay? Now, it's up to you this time. Can you think of any other sentences with allow or forbid to talk about permission? And so if you can think of them, please, we'd love to see your comments below. Give us some interesting sentences, something that maybe comes from your own life. But thank you again for watching and see you next time. Bye!